That morning, I woke up at 6:15 with a message that was exactly 14 words long. No greeting, no emotion, no exclamation mark. We changed all the locks on the front door and the gate code. We no longer trust you. I stared at those words on my phone screen like they weren't from my mother, but from a corporate HR manager firing me. From the family. It was 10 minutes to 7, but I was sure she had rewritten that line all night, polishing every word like it was an official statement. I wasn't surprised. I typed a few words and hit send without hesitation. Smart move. But I think you missed one thing. I didn't wait for a reply. I opened my banking app, scrolled to my recurring transfers, found the one labeled Stonehaven Mortgage Corp, and hit cancel. $3,650. That's how much I had quietly been paying every month for the past 2 years. For the house, they said, was a gift to honor my brother, since he gave them their first grandchild. And me? Cora just thinks about herself. I remembered clearly the day they announced they were transferring the house deed to Brandon. My father said it like he was handing out an award. He's the one building this family. All you do is work and save. That doesn't warm the heart. I smiled at the time. A reflex trained too well, replacing any real reaction. I didn't say that I was the one who paid the $60,000 down payment, that the mortgage was under my name because their credit scores were too low, that every time the heating broke, the roof leaked, or the property tax spiked, I was the one who called, signed, and paid. In silence. Because I used to believe, that's what children are supposed to do. I used to believe that if I gave enough, helped enough, someday someone in the family would finally see me as a real part of them, not just their backup financial plan. 2 days after that text, a new email landed in my inbox. The subject line was in all caps. Urgent matter. Contact immediately. It was from a law office. I didn't open it. I already knew what was coming. I just shut my laptop, pulled the curtains, and stepped out onto the balcony. The autumn sunlight breaking through the gray clouds made everything look sharper than usual. The house they had taken from me in the name of deservedness was no longer my burden. I had cut the last lifeline they'd clung to, and at last my mind felt still. Not because I'd won, not because I'd retaliated, but because I had finally stopped mortgaging my life to someone else's dream. I used to think, if I just tried hard enough, helped long enough, someone in the family would eventually notice. But the past 4 years were nothing but emergency calls and unnamed bills. Every month, I wired $2,200 to cover the mortgage on the house in Lexington, Kentucky, a 2-story red brick home my mother once called the pride of the whole lineage. Every time the shingles flew off after a storm, the wiring shorted from moisture, or the toilet backed up at midnight, I was the one who hired someone. I was the one who paid. My mother never asked, "Are you doing okay?" She just said things like, "I know you're good at your job." Not like Tessa, always quitting one day and job hunting the next. Tessa, my younger sister. The one my mother always called, the one who sacrifices. And me, I was just the one who earns. I paid off Tessa's credit card debt 3 times, once when she spiraled into online shopping, once after getting fired from the bookstore for constantly being late, and once when she said, "If you don't help, I'll get evicted." Every time I wired the money quietly, no demand for payback, no request for a receipt. She once promised to repay me little by little. She never started. When Tessa's car brakes failed on the interstate, I was the one who called for roadside assistance and covered the nearly $1,900 repair on my personal credit card. When her son started preschool, I wired $750 monthly as a temporary advance to help them settle. 3 years later, I was still advancing. Not once did anyone say thank you. One Wednesday afternoon, I called the bank to check my savings, just to make sure I still had enough for grad school tuition. The call was supposed to last 2 minutes, but the representative asked, "Are you sure you just submitted a request to transfer the primary ownership of the house to Ms. Tessa Whitmore. I froze. The verification's still pending, she added, but the request was filed last week. The confirming email address is Tessa 1989. But mistake. I ended the call, hands still inside my coat pocket. I didn't feel shocked. More like hollow. I had always known this would happen eventually. I just didn't expect they'd do it so quickly. That night, I logged into the supplemental credit card account I had once opened for Tessa during her rough patch, and there it was, a charge of $1,275 at Target, followed by a string of purchases. Clothing, toys, dog food, home audio gear. I had never given her permission to use that card again. Turns out, she never deleted the information. I texted her. No sugarcoating. Me. Did you use my card again? 3 minutes later, her reply popped up. Tessa. Don't make it a thing, Cora. Mom said you never closed it. I thought we were still sharing. You're doing fine, right? You're doing fine, right? That line hit like a slap. Because it turns out they never needed to know how I was holding up. As long as I wasn't falling apart, then I could keep paying. 3 hours later, I got a message from Mom. Tessa's under a lot of pressure. She needs to feel safe. Don't blow this out of proportion. You're still the most capable one in the family, aren't you? Being the most capable. For what? To take care of everyone while never being counted as part of them? I opened my phone and scrolled into the family group chat. The name was Warm Home, with a pink heart icon I don't remember ever clicking like on. A meme had just been posted. An image of a man tossing his wallet out the window with the caption, "Big sister energy, pay now, don't ask." Underneath, my uncle commented, "Hey Cora, got any spare cash? I need to fix my roof." No one joked to defend me. No one said, enough. I left the group. A minute later, someone added me back. I laughed again, then blocked everyone. They didn't know I was sitting alone in a coffee shop near my office, fingers still stained with printer ink from the contract I hadn't signed yet, a lucrative deal I'd spent 6 months chasing. I almost signed the... I paused. I realized I couldn't breathe. I set the pen down, then picked up my phone and deleted every linked account, canceled every service registered under my name. No more helping until they're grateful. No more enduring for the sake of family. Just me now, with a long list of everything I've given, and a silence, sharp and deliberate, waiting behind every door I once left open in good faith. I still remember that afternoon clearly. The air was still. Sunlight slanted through the trees in the backyard of the house in Lexington, the house in Tessa's name, though every bill still drained from my account. It was a weekend, and I was there to mow the lawn, like I always did. No one asked me to. But no one ever thanked me, either. My dad used to say, "You've got free time anyway, why hire someone and waste money?" That was before he pulled himself out of every financial conversation and left all the delicate matters to my mom. The mower suddenly sputtered and died. I headed to the kitchen porch to grab a bottle of water. My steps paused under the slightly open sliding window. The curtain moved just enough for voices to slip through. Mom's voice, sharp and clear. "Did you see her face when Aunt Audrey asked who owned the house? Like a puppy just got patted on the head." I froze. A light laugh followed. "Tessa?" Her tone was airy, triumphant. "He thinks she's being noble. Really, she's just doing what a backup bank is supposed to." I couldn't breathe. The bottle in my hand still unopened, my thumb pressed into the cap until it went pale. Then Mom's voice again, this time lower, but laced with something crueler. "She's not family anymore, sweetheart. Hasn't been for a long time. Now she's just the sponsor." I don't remember how long I stood there. Maybe a minute, maybe 5. All I know is I stopped hearing everything after that last line. Just the sponsor. A cut so clean it didn't sting right away, but bled somewhere deep. I turned away from the porch without a sound. They didn't know I'd been listening. Had no idea I was standing right there in the muted sunlight as something inside me finally cracked open. I drove home without remembering how I got there. Everything felt foreign, even myself. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, but in my head, something had changed for good. Not because I was shocked. The truth is, I'd suspected it. I'd felt the sideways glances, the half-jokes, the times they skipped over me when saying, all of us. I just hadn't heard it out loud. Until now. That night, I sat alone in my rented apartment in Louisville, watching streetlights flicker against the window. I asked myself, how long have I built my life around people who never really saw me as theirs? 4 years? Or my entire life? I didn't need an answer, because it already echoed in Mom's laughter, in the way Tessa said she, like I was an outsider, a stranger lucky enough to be useful. I opened my laptop, pulled up every email, invoice, transaction, bank statement. All the things I'd saved just in case, never thinking I'd actually need them. But now I knew. They weren't just records. They were facts. And facts don't need to be loved, just remembered. I created a new folder, named it Cora Full Disclosure. Then I started compiling everything, every expense, every receipt for AC replacements, roof repairs, plumbing fixes, appliance installments, every transfer to Tessa's supplemental account, with notes like Jay's piano class or just until things settle. I printed them one by one, filed them neatly into a binder, set it on my desk. Not to retaliate, not to make a scene, but to never let myself forget. I was called the sponsor. Inside the very house I spent years keeping from falling apart. 3 weeks after I stood frozen under that kitchen window, I received a white envelope with embossed gold trim. You're cordially invited. Mary Whitmore's 60th birthday celebration. Venue, Briarwood Country Club. Dress code, white, black, emerald. Guest count limited to 75. A legacy family event. No sender's name, no personal note. Just 3 italicized words at the bottom. From your family. I placed the invitation on the table, right next to the ever-thickening binder. Nearly 4 months' worth of financial data, mortgage transfers, gas line repairs, maintenance costs, electric, water, insurance, appliances. The total? $218,540. I reviewed the backyard camera files again, specifically the audio clip with Mom and Tessa saying, the sponsor, the happy puppy, tighten the wallet and she'll sit still. Then I added screenshots from the family group chat, Warm Home, where they captioned a meme with, Big wallet energy, Cora will pay. I didn't just keep the evidence. I turned it into an official record. A clearly organized PDF file titled Whitmore_family_settlement_Cora_rights, PS. I backed it up to a flash drive, Google Drive, and my own email. Then I printed all 222 pages, bound neatly in a clear plastic cover, as polished as an unsigned contract. 3 days before the party, I sent a copy to my personal attorney. Not to sue, but to make sure I had a legal witness if anyone tried to escalate. The party unfolded exactly as I imagined. Soft golden lights, white linens, classical music drifting from a quartet near the golf course. My father stood in a tuxedo, next to my mother in a floor-length emerald gown. She held Tessa's hand, smiling just enough to make the scene look like a perfect family. I arrived right on time, in a black high-neck dress, hair in a low bun, carrying a small leather clutch that held my flash drive and the printed binder. No one greeted me. Tessa glanced my way for a second, then looked away. My mother saw me. Her lips twitched slightly but held the polite smile you'd give a distant relative. When it came time for speeches, Tessa went first. She talked about sacrifice, blood ties, and unconditional love. Her closing line was, "The home we are preserving isn't just brick and mortar. It's a symbol of the love passed down from our mother, the woman who taught us about trust, Polite applause followed. I stepped forward from the shadows just as my mother approached the microphone. She hadn't even spoken when I inserted the flash drive into the laptop connected to the projector. The large screen lit up with a black and white title. Financial Summary. Contributions by Cora Whitmore, 2018 to 2023. All the murmuring stopped. I spoke calmly, every word clear. If today is a celebration of family legacy, I'd like to present mine. I pressed play. The first voice echoed from the ceiling speakers. She's not family. She's just the sponsor. A sharp gasp came from the left side of the room. Tessa turned pale. My mother stiffened, her fingers trembling even though her eyes stayed forward. I continued. The next slide appeared. A breakdown. $218,540. Itemized by date, type of expense, transaction ID. Screenshots of the group chat. Legal paperwork showing the attempted deed transfer. I turned toward my mother and Tessa. If the house belongs to Tessa, I said quietly, then I'm here to present an invoice, not a gift. I pulled out the 222 printed pages and placed them on the gift table, next to a champagne box and birthday cards. This is what I sacrificed. If anyone else wants to talk about gratitude, be my guest. Tessa jumped up. Are you insane? You're turning Mom's birthday into a courtroom. I didn't look at her. I just replied. Not a courtroom. This is the first time I've been allowed to tell the truth. Silence stretched so long it became uncomfortable. An elderly relative stood up and nodded at me. Others whispered. A child started crying. I didn't stay to see what came next. I walked out of the hall. Through the glass doors behind me, I caught a glimpse of my mother, frozen beside the stage, a green glow softening the face that could no longer hold a smile. I thought that would be the final scene, quiet, firm, and clear enough that no apology was necessary. But just as I passed the wine bar, near a side door leading to the parking lot, a familiar voice spoke behind me. Not loud, but sharp enough to snap the room like a pulled string. I have something to say. Heads turned all at once. I stopped walking. My grandfather, Henry Whitmore, was standing at the entrance. No tuxedo, no bow tie like the others. He wore a slate gray suit, sleeves cuffed just right, and eyes that didn't flicker once. I hadn't known he would come. In fact, I was sure he wouldn't, not after the last incident, when he refused to sign the asset transfer my parents tried to force through. Back then, he quietly packed his belongings and moved to a small apartment near Shelby Lake, a place none of them had visited since. But here he was now, standing in the same room where people clapped for Tessa and pretended I didn't exist. No one spoke. He walked straight to the stage, where the microphone was still on. He picked it up like he'd been waiting for this moment for a very long time. I used to think silence was the only way to preserve decency in a family built on pretense, he began. But today, I see it clearly. Silence doesn't save anyone. The entire room went still. Mary, Joseph. He looked directly at my parents. You raised someone who takes without giving back. And someone too afraid to face it. I didn't just keep the evidence, I turned it into an official document. A PDF file with a clear table of contents titled Whitmore _family _settlement Cora _rights EP. I backed it up on a USB drive, Google Drive, and a self-sent email, then printed all 222 pages, neatly bound in a clear plastic folder. Like an unsigned contract. 3 days before the party, I sent a copy to my private attorney, not to sue, but to ensure I had a legal witness, should anyone try to escalate. The party played out exactly as I imagined. Soft amber lights, white silk drapes, classical music floating from the edge of the golf lawn. My father wore a tuxedo, standing beside my mother in a floor-length emerald gown. She held Tessa's hand, smiling just enough to make outsiders believe this family is picture perfect. I arrived on time, wearing a black high-neck dress, hair pulled into a low bun, and carrying a small leather purse holding the USB and print copy. No one greeted me. Tessa glanced for a second, then looked away. My mother saw me. Her lip twitched slightly, but she kept the polite smile of someone pretending I was a distant relative. The speeches began. Tessa went first. She talked about sacrifice, blood ties, unconditional love. Her final line, "This home we're preserving isn't just bricks and mortar, it's a symbol of love passed down from our mother, who taught us trust." Polite applause followed. I stepped out of the shadows as my mother walked toward the microphone. Before she could speak, I plugged the USB into the presentation laptop. On the massive projector screen, bold black and white text appeared. Financial summary. Cora Whitmore's contributions. 2018 to 2023. All murmurs stopped. I spoke calmly, clearly. If today is about honoring family legacy, then let me share mine. I hit play. The first audio clip echoed through the ceiling speakers. "She's not family, just the sponsor." A gasp came from the left table. Tessa turned pale. My mother froze, still facing forward, but her fingers trembled. I continued. The next slide showed an itemized breakdown. $218,540. Transaction dates, expense types, transfer receipts, screenshots of group chats, legal proof of the house deed transfer. I turned to my mother and Tessa. "If the house belongs to Tessa," I said softly, "then this isn't a gift. It's an invoice." I pulled out the 222-page binder and placed it on the gift table, next to the champagne and congratulatory cards. This is what I sacrificed. If anyone wants to talk about gratitude now, be my guest. Tessa shot up. "Are you insane? You're turning Mom's party into a trial." I didn't look at her. I simply said, "Not a trial. Just the first time I've told the truth." A silence settled over the room like static. An older cousin stood and bowed slightly to me. A few others whispered. A child started crying. I didn't stay to see what happened next. I walked out of the hall. Behind me, the glass doors reflected my mother frozen at the stage, the spotlight casting a dull blue glow over a face that could no longer hold a smile. I thought that would be the end. Clean, final, no apology required. But as I passed the bar near the side exit, a familiar voice rose, not loud, but sharp enough to pull every gaze like a snapped cable. "I have something to say?" Everyone turned. I stopped. It was my grandfather, Henry Whitmore, standing at the entrance. No tuxedo, no bow tie, just a gray suit, cuffs crisp, gaze unwavering. I hadn't expected him to come. After the last incident, when he refused to sign over the trust to my parents, he quietly moved to a small apartment by Lake Shelby. No one had visited him since, but here he was, in front of the same guests who clapped for Tessa and ignored me. He walked straight to the stage, where the mic was still live, picked it up as if this had been long overdue. "I once believed silence was the only way to preserve dignity in a dishonest family," he began. "But today I see clearly, silence doesn't save anyone." The room fell into complete stillness. "Mary, Joseph," he looked directly at my parents. "You raised a thief and a coward." Tessa froze. My mother went pale. My father opened his mouth, but Grandpa raised a hand, not loudly, but firmly. "But quiet. That's already too lenient for what you've done." He turned to me. His eyes weren't harsh now. They held something sharper than pity. Recognition. "Cora, you've endured enough. And though this family never deserved it, I want you to know. You earned back my trust by holding your silence until now." He pulled a folded document from his coat. Thin paper. A red notary seal at the bottom. "The revised inheritance agreement for the Whitmore Trust. I signed it last week. Tessa's name is removed. You now hold full control." Gasps rippled through the room. My mother lunged forward, almost trying to snatch the paper, but Grandpa turned away, eyes sweeping the crowd. "Want a legacy?" His voice was deep, final. Build your own. No one clapped. No one defended. No one protested. The air was thick with truth. Tessa collapsed into a chair, panic eclipsing her anger. My mother stood motionless, hands trembling like she'd just lost every illusion she ever clung to. As for me, I looked at Grandpa. I nodded. Once. Slowly. He placed the mic on the table. Not a single extra word. I walked to the door without turning back. No heavy weight on my shoulders. Well, paper in my hand. I left the party without a glance behind. The next morning, my phone showed 36 unread messages. By noon, that number climbed past 70. The first was from my mother. You ruined the family's reputation on my birthday. Do you feel no shame? Then one from my father, short and bitter. Your mother's right. You're not part of this family. Don't expect another dime. Tessa said nothing. But within the hour, she posted a black hat story on Instagram. Sometimes the hurt ones become the cruelest. Her latest post gathered hundreds of comments. Stay strong, Mama Tessa. Family matters more, money can't buy love. You don't owe anyone an explanation. We all carry our own pain. None of them knew I was called the sponsor behind my back. None saw the 222 pages I laid on the gift table. I didn't reply. I didn't react. I sat in my apartment in Louisville, played soft jazz, opened my laptop, and checked every backup file. By the end of day 2, a new email arrived from an unknown legal firm. Richard.Morris@CrenshawLegalGroup.com. Subject line bolded. Settlement proposal, confidential and internal resolution. I opened it. The message was brief and polished. Dear Ms. Cora Whitmore, on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Joseph and Mary Whitmore, I'm reaching out to discuss the possibility of a civil settlement in order to avoid unnecessary legal and media escalation. My clients are prepared to transfer a partial amount, equivalent to 50%, provided you agree not to publicly disclose any further documents, recordings, or related materials. I read to the end. No apology. No admission. Just an offer for peace. As if it was their dignity on the line, not the truth they'd buried for years. I opened a new email, typed without hesitation. I will not accept half. No discounts, no negotiations. I have complete and verified evidence, audio, photos, receipts, legal documentation. If the full amount, every cent, is not transferred within 72 hours, I will submit the file to the press and initiate a civil lawsuit for unauthorized asset transfer and credit abuse. I'm not asking for more, but I will not accept less. Final amount, $218,540. Legal fees incurred by your outreach will also be your responsibility. See you in federal court, if necessary. Cora Whitmore. I hit send. The next 3 days passed slower than any I could remember. I muted my phone. Avoided social media. Didn't go to my usual spots. Afraid someone might ask, how's the family? Exactly 72 hours later, at 4:17 p.m., my bank app pinged. Incoming transfer, $218,540. Note, internal settlement. No admission of liability. I stared at that line like it was a verdict. The sender wasn't my parents. Not Tessa. Just a small company from Texas. A name I didn't recognize. I assumed they used a third party to avoid a direct link. Cowardice down to the last move. I took a screenshot, printed the receipt, backed it up on 4 separate drives, then locked the account. No thank you texts, no cryptic quotes, no explaining my side. They can keep performing their betrayal narratives. As for me, my math is finished. I didn't post anything right after the money hit my account. I just printed the receipt, folded it neatly, slid it into a plain white envelope with no name, and placed it on my bookshelf. Not as a reminder that I'd won, but that I no longer owed anyone. A week later, I recorded a video. No background music, no filters. Just me, sitting in front of a gray wall in my new apartment, one with windows overlooking rows of maple trees turning colors. My voice was calm, no bitterness, no plea for sympathy. I'm not sharing this to seek attention, and it's not about revenge. I just want to say, some wounds can't be healed with an apology, but the truth doesn't need healing. It just needs to be told. I held up a piece of paper, the number printed clearly, $218,540. This is how much I paid over 4 years to keep a family I thought was mine. No one forced me, but no one ever thanked me either. And when I stopped paying, they called it betrayal. I didn't name anyone, I didn't accuse anyone. I ended with one line. This isn't hate, this is the truth. And the truth always comes with a receipt. I hit post at 9:03 p.m. I didn't think much of it. By the next morning, the video had over 300,000 views. By the end of the week, it passed 1.2 million. Messages came in from people I'd never met. Thank you for saying what I never dared to say to my own mother. I've lived my whole life as an emotional ATM. Today, I closed that account. Cora, you don't know this, but you saved me from sending my brother the rent money again. Therapists reposted the video. Adult children who had been financially exploited sent emails with their stories. One person even mailed me a hand-painted print that said, "Kindness is not an obligation." I didn't reply to everyone, but I read every word. There were no messages from my parents, no apologies, no attempts to reconcile. And strangely, it didn't feel empty. It felt quiet. The kind of quiet that's clean. No background noise. My apartment isn't big, but light pours in from 2 directions. In the mornings, I make coffee and water my plants. In the afternoons, I walk to the corner store for produce. No one asks me for money. No more texts saying, "Can you spot Mom a little something this week?" I still have their numbers, but notifications are off. At first, I checked voicemail. Now, I don't. And they don't call. Someone once asked me, "Cora, do you feel lighter now?" I didn't answer right away. Because honestly, I don't feel lighter. Thanks, I feel clear. Clear about the boundaries I need. Clear about the memories. Worn down by one-sided expectations. And clearest of all, I no longer live hoping that love will come from people who never chose to give it. I'm not waiting for them to change. I'm not hoping they'll understand. I've just stopped calling it family. People still ask, does forgiveness have conditions? I think it does. Forgiveness requires truth, accountability, and a desire to repair. Without those, forgiveness is just a performance. A way for you to forget so others can breathe easier. I'm not trying to be accepted anymore. And I'm not forcing myself to forget. The memories are still there, but I've put them in their place, and this time they don't get to open that drawer. My life now is simple. No explanations, no proving. No more roles I have to stretch myself into. I don't revolve around what they need. I'm not the one they come to when they're short, only to vanish once they're full. I'm just me. No added roles, no hidden terms. And that's enough. Not for anyone else, not for any cause. Just because I finally chose to stand with myself. My story isn't about retaliation. It's about ending the cycle of being used in the name of family. I used to think silence preserved relationships, until I realized if you have to sacrifice yourself to keep a connection, that's not love. Since letting go, I've lived with more clarity, more peace. No late-night calls for help. No looks that assume I'll carry the burden. I don't need anyone to admit the truth. I just need to live honestly. And that's where real freedom begins. What do you think about Cora's choice? If it were you, what would you have done? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful, emotional stories about family and life.